markets open in Asia, climbing up towards that infamous $70 mark. Let's kick off this morning with Omar Najia, Global Head of Derivatives at BB Energy, sitting in Dubai. Omar, we see clearly demand looking solid from all sides, particularly the US, and yet supply still quite heavily constrained. Your outlook for the week ahead?
I think basically we've been consolidating since March. I think that's now finished. So I think the next target high for WTI is the high at 67.98. And above that, I think the next target basically comes in about 72 and then 76 thereafter. So I think right now, we're coming into peak demand season, gasoline season, opening up summer, vaccines, flight, tourism, all that kind of stuff. So I think basically the market, oil, at least I'm looking for it to accelerate higher into impossible and beyond.
Into where, sorry?
Impossible, yeah.
What does that
like
mean?
The buzz. Well, I think basically a lot of people don't kind of look at markets, don't kind of look at exogenous markets. They look just at oil and they say, OPEC plus is not going to hold together. Shale is coming back. Iran, they're going to agree a deal and all this kind of stuff. And the bottom line is it doesn't matter. Everybody said that the deal with Iran is done. Market reaction doesn't matter. Up we go. Everybody's been saying shale is coming back. Market reaction doesn't matter. Up we go. It is not that basically this news is unimportant. It's just that it's already priced in. It's already done and dusted, looked at, digested, all done. So I think basically next leg higher is up, and the reason why is because there still are shorts in the market. You still have basically optimism. You have a lot of liquidity in the market, a lot of money looking for a home, and money flow is what's going to come into these markets, be it on futures, be it on ETFs, be it on talk of commodity super cycles, weakening dollar, you name it. So I think there's a lot of scope considerably higher on the oil market, and I think people won't expect what they see next, hopefully.
Randall Mohammed, former VP Energy Solutions, Ahart Solutions International, sitting in Florida. We've been up and down this $65 to $70 yo-yo for some time now. Omar's calling it over, but there's still a large amount of oil supply on the side. OPEC meeting tomorrow. Do you expect them to bring more of that supply back now, given that demand is so robust?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Sean. Good morning, everyone. Look, Sean, certainly from a US standpoint, it is very robust. We're up to about 41% in terms of our vaccination rate, and I think that's just going to climb higher and higher as we get into Q3 and Q4. President Biden did promise by July 4th, we're going to be almost back to normal. He wanted families back together. So look, this Memorial Weekend, Sean, has been extremely busy. The airports have been crammed. A lot of people are back on the roads, traveling up and down the highways. In particular, Miami has become a big hotspot this Memorial Weekend. And what is interesting, Sean, is that we have now set up vaccination centers in Miami Airport. We have mobile units on Miami Beach. So look, the forecast really, Sean, is that this vaccination drive is going to continue. It's going to be robust. And I see good things for demand. I see good things for gasoline. And it's only going to get stronger.
Laurie Hatayan, MENA Director, Natural Resources Governance Institute. Laurie, I think obviously the challenge now becomes, does OPEC ultimately I mean, Omar's saying supply doesn't matter. I would obviously myself contest that. This market's still propped up by the absence of 6 or 8 million barrels of oil, and now OPEC has a decision to make. Do they bring supply back, or do they want to see prices go above $70 a barrel? Which do you think they will choose?
I don't want to predict, and it's becoming very difficult to predict what OPEC Plus will do. But I guess they will continue on pumping and increasing production, and that will be the trajectory, I guess. And plus, with all these talks about Iran might come back, etc., so they want to continue pushing it and producing. So I don't see any changes to their decision tomorrow, maybe even like surprising us with an increase in production going forward. And don't forget that there will be a summer season and more demand for ACs, etc. So I think that they are going into the trajectory of pumping more, producing more, and that is something that will continue, I guess, with all these changes that are happening around the oil and gas sector and all these things, dramatic decisions that have taken place last week. I was off for 10 days. I came back. I felt that I'm in a different world with all these Exxon news, Shell news, Total Energy, etc. I felt that, oh my God, where did I land? In a different planet. And that was only for 10 days. So imagine all the changes that will happen. I think oil producing countries will want to continue pumping and knowing what they're capable of doing. Like the disaster of last year put like a lot of emphasis on what are the capabilities of OPEC, OPEC Plus, and they showed that they are responsible, they're capable of controlling, and that gives them a lot of confidence, and that gives a lot of confidence to them and to the market, so that I think now they will be continuing on producing, and this is where they're heading.
Omar, can OPEC and oil producers, OPEC Plus, have their cake and eat it? Can they increase supply, put more of their idle supply back in the market where clearly demand it looks healthy, and still enjoy a 70 plus price movement?
So yeah, short term, I think basically that supply will increase, but so will demand. That's one. Longer term, strategically, investment in oil is just not there. So everybody wants to be green and wants to be so. Strategically speaking, longer term, you can forget about quote unquote supply and the investment that needs to go along to bring that supply online. The other thing I keep mentioning is that OPEC Plus are in general not stupid. They might be, they might not do things properly, whatever, but they're not dumb. In the same way, nobody would ask, will the Fed, increase rates suddenly tomorrow and crater this market? Do you think that's possible? Nobody asked that. So why do we ask, is OPEC Plus going to shoot itself in the head, kill the oil price?
Well, there is in both instances a middle ground. You don't have to shoot yourself in the head, but you may take a finger off to lose a few dollars in order to maintain your market share. Why would you give up 2 million barrels to shale when you can take it yourself and still enjoy $65 on the barrel? So I mean, it's not one or the other. It's not dead or alive. It's some sort of, as you say, they're not stupid. The idea to moderate, as they've done, a few 100,000, 700,000, maybe into the second half of the year, 1 million more. I mean, it's a moderated approach.
Shale is not coming back, right? I've been hearing that shale is coming back since we were trading like $40 on WTI, 45, they're coming back, 50, 55, 65. Shale is not coming back. The reasons for
the EIA did announce a big increase in production in the US over the last month.
Yeah, if you look at short-term stuff, you'll get blips to the upside. Trend-wise, production from the US is cratering, literally. So the reason, why is that? So it's not because, shale is doing anything, except the problem that shale cannot attract, even at these levels of interest rates, any money. And the question is why? The reason is they have massive debts and they don't make any money. It's not magic. So shale is not coming back unless basically some kind of magic happens in the future, which I don't expect to happen. The question is not about basically market share. The question is about revenue, right? Nobody sits. If you tell me that my business is going to basically disappear in 10 years' time, I will not be looking at market share. Market share is passé. Market share, you might have, wondered about it in 1970s. In 2021, what you worry about is revenue, not market share. Revenue means you maximize the amount of money that's coming into you. That happens by controlling a market, controlling the price, and controlling it to the upside. Why? Because if you let go of this control, you're going to get a flood. You're going to get Russia, you're going to get Saudi Arabia, you can get everybody coming in, Iran, blah, blah, blah. So in the same way...
Go ahead, sorry, finish your point.
No, so in the same way as the Fed controls liquidity by increasing it into the market, OPEC controls the market price by reducing supply. And that's going to happen simply because everybody's telling them that, the market is done.
Randall, the outlook in the US, just to address some of the points Omar is raising there, production recovery does seem to be, at least if it's a temporary moment or not, but there's been an upward swing in the last month. US production now back above 11 million barrels a day. But also welcome your thoughts on the news regarding Exxon, Shell, the IEA report. Will we see US majors pull back further on their capex investment, and so supply gets tightened? That's more to the midterm, but the outlook immediately for US oil production.
Yeah, that's that's a good question, Sean. And let's not forget, Sean, that where US production at one point in time was around 13.5 million barrels per day, right? That fell off. They probably backed about 11.1 million barrels per day. So look, it's nowhere near where it used to be. And, as I had remarked earlier on, Sean, the US had aspirations of pushing that production in excess of 14, 15 million barrels per day. Between me and you, I don't think we're going to ever see that figure. In a way,
tell Lori as well. We'll let her in on the secret.
Production. I think production will come back, Sean, but it's going to be a slow train till the end. And as Omar pointed out, the capital simply isn't there. In years gone by, Sean, when shale was profitable, there was a lot of private equity poured money into shale because Congress had approved certain tax deductions for drilling, so it was attractive in those days. I think those days are gone. The capital simply isn't there, and a lot of private equity and hedge funds are now sort of tending away from fossil fuels and going into the direction of green energy. I think it's inevitable.
This is a real moment of change for the likes of the ExxonMobil in particular, given it is the ultimate sort of beast in the room, that this decision last week is actually going to change forever the direction of this company?
I think so. I mean, it's not that, look, let's not kid ourselves. Oil and gas is not going to fall off a cliff.
No.
It's not going to disappear.
If anything, these developments could ensure that we get to $100 oil in the next 2 or 3 years because of the outlook for supply being so constrained.
I don't think we're going to see $100 barrel of oil in our lifetime. Certainly not in my lifetime. And certainly if the Biden administration pushes that green agenda, and within that 1.7 trillion stimulus package is more about greening the economy, right? There's 500,000 EV charging stations
yeah.
and the rest of it. So look, I think we've reached a point, Sean, where this talk about peak oil demand may be very, very well upon us. And I think the direction is towards green, but at the same time, oil and gas is not going to disappear. I think you'll see a lot more gas.
We may indeed be at the peak. The peak of the declarations of peak oil demand, and we'll be swinging another way. Laurie, the peak of the negotiations in Vienna, a week or more two ago, I might have been a lot more optimistic that they were going to do something ahead of the election. I'm sort of losing that. We did an interview actually last week with your former Prime Minister, Signora, who was somewhat skeptical about a deal with Iran ahead of the elections. Where do you think those talks are at the moment?
Well, I think there are two scenarios, actually, the way we see it. Either a deal before June 18, or a deal after June 18. And that depends, I guess, on what they want to do with the potential president, or how much they want to empower the potential president that everybody's talking about now, which is the candidate Raisi, that they see that he might be the potential candidate and the potential president, and later they have plans for him to become the supreme leader. So I guess if they might, that Raisi, it seems that he's not in favor of the JCPOA. So maybe what they see is okay, the reformist camp is very weak. Even the candidates that they have will not stand the elections, even if the deal is made. So why don't they do a deal before the elections? And therefore, Raisi comes in with already a deal that he doesn't like, but he wasn't one that he made it, but he can get all the benefits of the deal, so that he works on the recovery and the economic recovery. So they empower him with a deal that has nothing to do with it, and he goes on with all the benefits. And then they build up his profile so that when he wants to be the supreme leader. So that could be one scenario. Or a deal after the elections where they might consider that Raisi has made the deal, so therefore again he's in power and he can do deals with the US. Therefore, he's able of standing facing the US. So now we don't know exactly where we are going, but I think that these are the two ways that we have a deal. Omar is saying he's everybody's talking about a deal that this is fait accompli. I think a deal will come at one point in time, but what will happen to the oil market and what will Iranians do? At the end of the day, Iranians were not going to flood the market with oil because they need high prices as well. So I think there might be a calculated return of these barrels to the market, because same as the others, even though they said they're not going to abide by a quota and they don't want a quota now because they feel that they had suffered a lot, but I think they also want a high price because that is the only way for them to get the economic benefits. So this is actually where we are now. I wish I could tell you which direction we're taking, but at least these are the different scenarios that we are seeing.
Yeah, let's go to a double survey question this morning. That's the first one. Will oil markets require more supply in Q3 to meet demand? I mean, how long is a piece of string, really? The question ultimately, I suppose, will they get it? Omar, this week we've obviously, the markets have opened in Asia up, and it is a little bit of an unusual week in the sense that there's a bank holiday weekend in the US. What's your outlook for the momentum of the week? Is this the week in which we could finally cross and close above 70?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to move. I think the market wants to move higher. So yes, I think basically this week should see us move higher. Fingers crossed. Don't want to jinx it, all that kind of stuff. But yes, I like the market. I'm bullish the market. I'm very bullish the market. I want the market to go up.
We saw nearly 2 million people on airplanes this weekend in the US, which is for the first time since the COVID crisis. We've got record numbers driving across the US. I think 40 million people driving more than 60 miles or something like that.
And don't forget, the prevailing talk before was that we're never going to get back to normal. People are never going to travel again, all that kind of stuff. So basically, there's a lot of companies, a lot of things have basically not destocked, basically. So like I was saying last week, you find a lot of pilots. You're going to have to hire them all back, and quickly. Some of them won't want to come back. So you're going to get higher prices. You're going to have people basically compete for seats on aircraft, theoretically. But I like this market. I like this market higher. And can I just say on the Iran thing, Iran, I mean, I always tend to think people are not stupid. Why would Iran agree to a quote unquote deal with the US? If they've done the same before, they've signed it. They've been ratified by the UN, and still the US walked away. So I find it very, very difficult to believe that Iran is basically going to quote unquote agree a deal. The only way, in my view, that they agree is if basically not only is the deal agreed, signed, all the rest of it, but they actually get the benefit and verify that they get the benefit, get the money, all the stuff frozen, all of the sanctions lifted immediately, blah, 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 blah. In other words, if a deal is agreed, it's going to be a complete climb down by the US, which everybody on the face of this planet is going to see. It's going to be very difficult for them to have any kind of push, pull, whatever it is. Geopolitically, it's going to be a complete disaster for the US. So I don't see how they window dress something like that. And I don't see how Iran just says, you know, we had a deal before, they didn't live up to it, so we'll have another one now, and we hope that they will. I just don't see that.
Let's go to the survey result on that first question. Will oil markets require more supply in Q3? Obviously, answer seems to be a bionic yes. Randall, meanwhile, back in the US, where we have obviously a lot of positive news, one thing that's catching my attention over the last few weeks and months now, and even the massive container ship traffic jam on the California coast. There's literally hundreds of container ships waiting up to 3 weeks to unload. Consequently, the capacity to move goods across the Pacific from the Asia production center to the US consuming center is delayed and making the shortage of everything of what we're seeing. What's the problem there? Can it be resolved anytime soon, do you think?
Yeah, Sean, that's a good question. You know, truthfully, I have not really investigated what's behind that. But what I do know, Sean, is that there is shortages of certain goods on the shelves. And, you know, as we spoke about this pent-up demand, and certainly there is a lot of pent-up demand in the system. Look, we've just come off about 3 stimulus packages. You know, people have gotten their $1,200, their $600, and now they're $1,400 in their pocket. Inflation.
Good to be American. It's good to be American.
Inflation in the month of April, Sean, has pushed past 4.6%. So look, there's a lot of inflationary pressure in the system, and it doesn't appear that the Fed is embarking on a tightening scenario. We see them continue to buy assets, and therefore pumping more liquidity into the banking system. And I think the Fed is really saying, look, guys, we need a period of this liquidity. We need a period to recover. Yes, inflation has pushed past that 2% mark, but you know, we want to see that 2% sort of average out over a longer time before we start withdrawing liquidity from the system. Lumber prices, Sean, have pushed up by more than 170%. So look, there is inflationary pressure there. The Fed knows it, but we're not seeing any real action by the Fed to reduce it.
Let's bring up the second survey question on this point. Can OPEC add barrels and still enjoy $70 price this year, $70 plus? I.e., can they go above 70 and keep adding barrels? That's the question. Laurie, we had also in our digest today the ongoing issues in Libya. Turkey resumes sending mercenary soldiers to Libya. Is there any concerns that Libya could heat up over the summer, literally, and this sort of fragile sort of peace that's currently there could unravel? What are your thoughts for the East Med and Libya?
So this is a show of power by Turkey, because, as you know, like this, we had this, if you want, diplomatic incident or a diplomatic crisis between the foreign minister of Libya with her statement asking all the foreign armies to pull out, or the mercenaries to pull out, and that Turkey took it very personal, and there was this tension between them. And I think like this is sending back troops like to protect their bases, etc. It's a sign of power and sign of to show like they are in charge, and they're different from the others. The way they see it, that they're different from the Russians or the others, because they've been invited by the old Council of Presidency, or the National Accord, the government at that time. So I think this is it, nothing else. On the other side, we've seen like General Haftar has been had his military parade, saying that I'm here when I'm needed, I'm here, and I can face Turkey if the government wants me to do that. So I think these are like just like they're showing strength, but nothing more. Until now, we don't see anything, any escalations for the moment.
And from that point of view, the situation across the region, we saw obviously Turkey in talks recently with Egypt. Is there, what is your outlook for that? Does that influence what's going to happen in Libya? Are these pieces connected?
So I think there are a bit of changes that are happening in the region to look at. Maybe one thing, what is happening in Israel, and Netanyahu might be out of the picture. So that will be a change to look for, because for more than 10 years, we had Netanyahu in power, who has had all these different relations in the region and kind of influencing some of the alliances, etc. So let's see what will happen there. I believe in a couple of hours, we will know if he's going to stay or he's going to be out of the picture. The other rapprochements that are happening were on the part of the new Biden administration, and everybody looking into like how to make gains in the region, but nothing significant when it comes to the oil and gas. As you know, like now the whole region has to think about like what will happen to the future of oil and gas with all these dramatic decisions, policies that have been taken. What does it mean? Like the IEA's report on no more investments starting this year. What does it mean for the region that is like it thinks of itself as a potential bonanza and sees itself like part of the future of at least gas? So what does it mean for the region? I think that there is movement, but there is no clarity on the direction.
Okay, let's get the result of the second survey question. Give Omar the last word today.
Wow.
Boom. 50-50. 50-50. Basically, I have no idea. But that's where I suppose why Omar earns the big bucks, because he can't do 50-50. He's got to make his calls. Omar, your thoughts on the outlook? OPEC meet tomorrow. Does it matter to you? Does it have any impact on the direction of the momentum of this market? I mean, we had a sense last week that the momentum may have gone out of the market a little bit. Your thoughts now? We're seeing the rubber literally meet the road in America. People are literally putting gasoline in their tanks and consuming. People are literally getting on airplanes. We are seeing the sort of wide eyes of demand now.
Yeah, so basically, again, people are not stupid. So basically, OPEC Plus, if you can imagine them being in a race, right, to make money, right? They see all this stuff. They see what we see. They're not blind. So what do? They put the brakes on because they've got to think of whatever it is that they have to think of, or do they accelerate to make money? I think they put their foot to the floor and they accelerate. That's the logical thing to do. That's the rational thing to do. So I see the market moving higher, and I think basically at the end of the day, it's not. How can I say this? you if let sleeping dogs lie, leave well enough alone. There's no reason for OPEC Plus to do anything. Higher prices are coming. They've just not got to mess it up. And the easiest way to not mess it up is do what you've said you've done, or what you said you were going to do, because the market has already digested that. No surprises. And I think the market heads higher. And I think basically this is good for oil producing countries. It's good for consumers. Why is it good for consumers? Because again, they have so much money in their pockets that unless some money goes to these OPEC countries, then like you say, nobody's going to continue any investment, and you're going to get like $100 prices, which I think is coming anyway, in the next few years. So you have to spread that. It's not just oil prices that are going up. Highest prices are going up. Lumber prices, the price of everything is going up. And that's not OPEC's fault. If you want a fault, basically, that's the Fed. That's liquidity. So your dollars are worth less and less. And the price of stuff keeps going up because your dollar in real terms has lost value. It's the same for oil, higher.
Don't do a Pep Guardiola on it. Don't overthink it, and play a Champions League final without a defensive midfielder.
Exactly.
Randall Mohammed from Florida, having a vaccine while you sunbathe on Miami Beach. I mean, I love America. It just it's the way to do things. It sounds actually very Beruji, I would say.
Sean,
the original of the species.
Actually, my son got his vaccine on Miami Beach.
Oh, Jesus.
He got vaccinated and I just want to make a last point here, Sean, that most of us who have received our 2 vaccines, we've been given a CDC card, right?
Yeah.
Now there are certain restaurants. When I walk into the restaurant, I show them my CDC card. I get a ticket, and guess what? It's masks off for the entire night. No mask needed again once I show my CDC card that I've gotten 2 vaccines. So it's happy days for us in Florida. Now Omar spoke about higher prices, and as you know, Sean, gasoline prices in the US have now crossed $3 per gallon on average. On average. Okay, the East Coast was a little different because of that Colonial Pipeline issue. We saw prices hit $7 per gallon out on the East Coast, but across the board, it's around $3 per gallon.
So half the price of a cappuccino. Laurie, thank you very much for your time today. As always, Omar as well, anchoring Mondays wouldn't be the same without it. Have a great week, everybody. We'll catch up with you in the coming days. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.